In Parshas Kisavo, there were a series of isurim, a series of prohibitions that are highlighted that Klal Yisrael specifically accepted upon themselves. Arur ha'ish, literally cursed is the person, cursed is the man who violates the following prohibitions. And the Torah lists off a whole series of very, very serious violations of Averos HaChamuros B'Yoser, some of them including Avodah Zarah, some of them including acts of Gilui Arayos, acts of Ritzicha, assorted other Averos. And there seems to be a theme, an underlying theme, that permeates at least several of these Averos, several of these Arurim. The Torah mentions the word Baseser. The person does these things in secret, privately, behind closed doors. Even the very first, the action of Avodah Zarah, of course, idolatry, something which in and of itself objectively is a horrific sin. And the Torah speaks about the person who makes an idol of a samba saucer and he hides it, that nobody should see it. And apparently the Torah is highlighting the fact that that which is being done by Seiser is even more problematic. It's almost as if the Torah is telling us it's bad enough to worship idols, but to worship them privately, that's even more of a problem. And the Torah goes on, it speaks about Masig Vure'eu. Masig Vure'eu refers literally to somebody in the dark of night, sneaks out to the backyard, and moves the marker between the two fields just a few inches to steal, to swallow up some of his land, some of the land of his neighbor. Now, of course, that is an act of Genev, of Gezela, it is an act of theft. But once again, the Torah highlights the type of Genev, the type of Gezela that nobody knows about. Nobody even sees it. We're not talking about a person who barges into a bank in the middle of the day. We're talking about a person who, in the dark of night, sneaky way, he goes ahead and he grabs something that not coming to him. Of course, we can only begin to think of almost the more modern day versions of these kind of gazelas under the table. Presumably no one's going to find out about them. It's a gazela baseiser. And then the Torah speaks about a mashki iver badarech, somebody who literally, figuratively puts a stumbling block in front of a blind person. This refers to literally a blind person. It refers to somebody who is blind in the sense of, I give him bad aids, I give him bad advice. He's blind, he doesn't know what to do, and I trick him. Or somebody who causes somebody else to stumble to sin, what we call halachli lifnei yivra. These are all included in the prohibition of mashki badarach. And the common denominator also, these are all done in secret. They're all done in a manner that the person, the victim, who is either literally being tripped or being tricked, being forced to stumble, isn't even aware of it. He is truly an Iver, he is blind. And the Torah highlights as a terrible violation of Benam L'Chavero, somebody who tricks somebody unknowingly, literally Baseiser. And again, the Torah continues with other forms of Chatoim, other forms of terrible Averos that are also literally Baseiser. The Torah speaks about Makireu Baseiser. Somebody who hits his friend, Baseiser, quiet, behind closed doors. And whether Makareh Baseiser refers to physically striking somebody when no one's around, or as Chazal say, it also refers to Lashon Hara, which is also a form of Makareh Baseiser. Once again, the Torah is highlighting that these things are being done not in the public arena. They're being done very hush-hush. And there's something fundamentally even more problematic about the nature of how these things are being done, perhaps even more serious than the Averis per se. It always brings to mind the very famous Ma'ameh Chazal when the Gemara tells us in Maseches Baba Kama in the 7th parak, there's a difference between a Ganav and a Gazlan. A Gazlan, somebody goes up to somebody in the middle of the day, grabs his money away. A Ganav is somebody who sneaks into the house in the dark of night, nobody knows, and he steals. And which is a more serious prohibition? So the Torah tells us that a Gazlan, you steal, you have to return what you stole. Ganav, you have to pay kefil, to pay twice the amount. Manishtada that a Ganav pays kefil and a Gazlan doesn't. Say Chazal that a Gazlan He's not afraid of anybody. Middle of the day, in broad daylight, he holds somebody up, he mugs somebody, terrible thing, but he's not afraid of anyone. A Ganov is afraid, all right. He's afraid of Boss of Adam. He's afraid of getting caught. He's afraid of the impression he's going to make. And therefore, he wants to steal, but he insists on doing it in a way, in a manner that nobody will ever know that it's him. And therein lies the terrible chait of Ganav, the more serious, more flagrant violation of Geneva than Gazela, is that a Ganav has Yira. He has the midah of fear, but he only has it vis-a-vis human beings. He doesn't have Yir Shemayim. The Gazlan doesn't even have Yira altogether. But the Ganav has Yira. He knows what it means to be afraid, but he's more afraid of a human being than he is of a HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And all of these Aveiras reflect that as well. To be Ovid of a Azar, it's terrible. And to kill so terrible. And to do these horrific crimes, terrible. But to do them b'seiser is even more profoundly terrible. Because by doing things b'seiser, you're in effect indicating that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not really watching. An Aveira b'seiser, of course, is so problematic. But Chazal tell us, Midah Toives Kfula B'chupelas Midas Peranius, that a good midah, a good trait, is worth a whole lot more than a bad trait. And if things that are done b'seiser, in the negative sense, can be so horrific, what about a mitzvah that's done b'seiser? What about an act of chesed, a word of kindness that's done b'seiser? What about a tefillah? It's davened properly b'seiser. What if a person does mitzvahs, not for the fanfare, not to draw attention, but for one reason alone, because it's avodas Hashem Yisbarach, and nobody will know, only HaKadosh Baruch Hu will know. If an aver b'seiser is so problematic, then a mitzvah b'seiser is in fact so beautiful and so wonderful. A mitzvah b'tznius, a mitzvah that's done without drawing attention, just simply Laman, Hashem Yisbarach, a mitzvah, the ultimate lishma. No external credit, no pat on the back from his friends. Ein l'cha mitzvah gedola mizo, to be able to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, b'tznius. And perhaps, as we approach the other Rosh Hashanah, there's almost like a contrast between two different aspects of Avodas Hashem. In Usaratoke, if we speak about of a shofar gadol, you talk of a kol demama daka yishama. There's a great sound, the blast of the shofar. The shofar is a very, very loud sound. You hear it far away. And that's important. Things that are done publicly are important. Avodas Hashem publicly is important. Chataim publicly are problematic. So, in the public eye, is significant. But if your entire Avodas Hashem revolves around a shofar gadol yitaka, then your Avodas Hashem is actually deficient. For kol demama daka yishama, a little whisper. Kadosh Baruch Hu Shechina can be heard in the little quiet whisper when nobody's around. Kol demama daka yishama. Avodas Hashem has to reflect both of these. Has to reflect. We have to be careful before Hesia in public. There's a special halacha of Chil Shem Shemayim, especially Chil Shem Shemayim Barabim. So significant, and we do things that are wrong, that do cause attention, do draw attention, that is something which is so problematic. But yet, we should never ever underestimate the significance of Averas that are done b'seisa, because Averas that are done b'seisa also have that aspect of a lack of proper Yiras Hashem. Yiras Basar Adam, yes, but Yiras Shemayim, no. And that, of course, is so problematic. And on the other hand, mitzvahs, yes, we have to do mitzvahs publicly also. And yes, it's important. And sometimes it's important that when we do a mitzvah that other people know about, it can sometimes encourage others to do. So there is a dimension of significance, the mitzvahs of kol, shofar gadol yitaka. And yes, we do have tabatar de rabbim, and we have tefillah b'tzibur, we do chesed as a community. Yes, that's all true. But don't forget, for kol demama daka yishama, that there's a time for a whisper. There's a time for mitzvahs, for Torah, for chesed, for tefillah, without the fanfare. Kodesh Baruch Hu give us a siyat ishmaya to be obeyed him properly, both through the vehicle of a shofar Gadi Yitaka, and similarly through the dimension of the kol the mamadaki shama. Wish everybody a wonderful Shabbos.